ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Go to Charles podcast and video log, available at gotocharles.com, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Spotify, Podcast Addict, and on YouTube here, and pretty much so anywhere Buzzsprout posts podcasts. I'd like to welcome William back. William, appreciate you coming on again. You keep coming up with topics and you show up, and I appreciate that personally. Today's topic is going to be on companions. The first topic we're going to talk about is the spiritual aspect of being accountable to animals as part of God's creation. The second topic we're going to talk about is service animals for disabled people on a physical, mental, or emotional level. The third topic we're going to talk upon is if the self-reflection aspect of learning a personal discipline by helping train an animal correctly. And the fourth is the statistics about animal purchases during the holidays, which, since we're in the holidays, is very important about where animals go and the whole thing. Anyways, welcome again, William. Appreciate you coming on.
Well, I appreciate being here, as always.
The first thing we're going to talk about is the spiritual aspect of being accountable to animals as part of God's creation. Now, this is something that I have personally never put any weight on. I think it's just necessary to be kind to all creatures. I watched a video today that basically was maybe like Pakistan or something like that, but a lady got bit in the rear end by a snake, and then a whole bunch of, it wasn't poisonous because she didn't get hurt, but all these people came down and they dug all the snakes out and they bagged them up, and whatever they do with them, I don't know, but there was like a dozen snakes in this den. And so, I feel like in a best case scenario, a biting snake in a place that it should not be, they handled it in the correct manner.
Yeah. If it's endangering a human, obviously, I've had reptiles, I've had snakes as well, and they're not as, let's say, sweet to you as a cat or a dog would be.
Right.
I mean, they can be tamed, but in the wild, if they're poisonous, or even, if you get bit by a snake, you could get an infection from their teeth or whatnot. So yeah, you got to be careful with that kind of stuff. I agree with that.
Yeah, actually, snakes. I know we're not going to just stay on snakes, but I brought that up because when I was in China Lake, California, I got to babysit a ball python that was about 6 feet long,
Neat.
and it got sick, and I had to actually feed it with a tube that you put down his throat, and you jam an egg into his stomach. And I'll tell you, a 6 foot python does not like you sticking a tube down his throat.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure most don't. I had a red-tailed boa constrictor, and I got it when I was 12, and it was 18 inches long, and it was about 9.5 feet long when I had to give it up and have other people help me with it. It
Right.
was, yeah, it got intense. I did get a lot of attention in junior high school from it, walking around with a snake around your neck and all. It's like, people are like, whoa, which is probably one of the reasons that I was more attracted to having a wolf hybrid than a dog, any kind of breed dog. And yeah, and one of the things that I wanted to talk about today, as you mentioned, the outline, is this accountability on a quote unquote spiritual level. I kind of like, to look back on that. I just learned recently that wolves and humans share 84% the same DNA. That's not a lot that makes us different. And
Correct.
so when scientists have already found out that there's certain types of animal DNA in us that make us up as a human. And so when I look at an animal like my new wolf puppy, I'm told by the breeder, she's part gray wolf, she's part husky, she's part Malamute, she's part German Shepherd. Now go learn about all those things because you have this big ball of all of that. So we as humans are, in a sense, a big ball of the animal DNA that make us up. And I think that something like a dog or a cat triggers something inside of us on a genetic level that really helps us have a more fulfilling life. You brought up snakes and reptiles in the beginning here, and I did want to add to this that, I have friends who hunt. I have friends who are vegetarians and eat meat. I'm not approaching today's topic necessarily on whether it's right to have mass chickens being put in cages and, slaughterhouses. That's not for me to judge. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody has their thing. I have my personal opinion on it. What I'd like to come at today is about our personal enriched experience by having a companion like a cat or a dog. When I was a young child, something that I noticed when I became aware, I don't remember the day I became aware as a child, but I do have a lot of memories of being young. And I remember the epiphany I had that a horse and a pig and a cow and a dog and a cat all have four limbs, two nostrils, two ears, two eyes. You know, it's the same but different. And we have the same thing, except we don't have our tails. We have hair rather than fur.
Well,
So,
our tails are just on backwards.
what's that?
Our tails are just on backwards.
Yeah, essentially, that's what I
Like
hear. Yeah,
cats.
keep my tail between my legs then. So, keep it under wraps. Basically, I got this new puppy, and this is one of the reasons that I wanted to do this talk is because I had a wolf hybrid for 10 years, and the impact that it had on me was tremendous. I feel like in a lot of ways, modern mankind is a little out or disjointed with the nature of what we are in connection to our environment on the natural parts of planet Earth. There are people who literally don't want to get out of the cities. They love being in the city, and I like going to the city. I also like leaving the city sometimes too, and being next to, like, one of my favorite places here in Washington is in Carnation, Washington, on the Tolt River. And I bought a chair, and I take my coffee over there, and it's close enough to me where I can just sit there for a half hour or an hour and really reconnect with nature. As you can see behind me, when I was a young kid, I wasn't even good with plants either. So now I've hit the animal kingdom with my wolf dogs. I'm good with the plants, and I did the humans with the children that I had and myself. So I feel like I'm learning from all the different kingdoms that are here, you know. But as far as pets being companions, there's this accountability to us to learn about ourselves through the mirror or the lens that everything around us is. First and foremost, on a level of psychology, we would be taught in therapy or from a counselor that the people that are in our lives reflect something about us to us. Certain people might trigger things in us that irritate us, and someone who's in a place where they want to learn about themselves might ask the question, what was that thing that triggered me to be upset in that mirror, right? A person who might be playing the victim would say, oh, I didn't do anything to deserve this, and just defend themselves because they're not in a place of learning. So if you look at animals from a place of us learning about ourselves as individuals, I see a spiritual, scientific responsibility to ourselves, just like with human to human. I see an accountability to ourselves in the reflection of what it's like to have these animals in our lives. They are enriching so many people. And Charles, I have to tell you, I'm not going to curse, but there's this type of face that some people make. It's resting bee face, you
Mhm.
know? So I have watched my puppy take some of the meanest faces in the last month and bring smiles, and just the muscles on these people's faces just melting. There's something about her that brings something out in everyone from Safeway to the Chevron to just the park. Old people, babies, there's just something universal about animals that brings the best out in us. And it happens very naturally. And that was the thing that inspired me to do this talk with you today. There is an accountability that we have to the things that reflect what we are. So the way I treat this animal will reflect who I am to myself. If I'm having a power struggle in my relationship or my business partner or at work or with my animal, I can say it's outside of me. It's the fault of the animal or it's the fault of my coworker. But anytime I feel triggered, I've learned that the next thing is to feel that irritation, but then ask the question, what is it about myself that's being triggered right now? And that's an important thing. And because like when you're picking up pee or poop from a puppy that's in the wrong spot, it's a little irritating. She's eaten a couple of my socks. That's been irritating too. But it's also been, refreshing to let go of that and realize I can replace those things and simultaneously train her and have that discipline and that emotional fix for her without me having to have that darker feeling of frustration. Because that's something that I think parents also get challenged with when they have to discipline a child is, you have to raise your voice sometimes. They have to know that something's happening and they need to be aware.
From
I
the
know I have a cat, so
from a psychological standpoint, I do want to ask you a question about that because I have an interesting take on dogs. When I was a kid, very young, I was very kind. I was raised in church. I tried to help others always, like men like to do. We like to be providers and help people out. And but I had a paper route in the morning, and it seemed like every single time that I went on my paper route early in the morning, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, that I would get chased by dogs on my bike.
mm,
And I'm like, well, I'm the nicest guy. I'll treat a dog just beautifully, but you're coming and biting at my ankle and doing whatever, and I'm trying
mm,
to outrun you and so forth and so on. And then
right.
fast forward to present, I can train a dog to do pretty much so anything. And I almost call myself a dog whisperer because I know certain points like the inside of the ear canal on an animal, a cat or dog. If they allow you to go there, they are hugely trusting. It's
Correct. Yeah.
a place they can't get. It's a place they can't, touch.
Mm-hmm.
So by you doing that, they actually respond in kind to the fact.
It's their level of intimacy, of love, of caring.
Right.
We, like I said, we have this, dogs came from wolves genetically over thousands of years. Humans changed them around, but they're still pack animals. So we have those genetics in us. So when we are allowed to touch that animal in that way, it is literally the ultimate love for an animal is trust and vulnerability. And I think that's the same with intimate relationships between people as well. Which is why sometimes people get hurt, right? Because you have to open up yourself. But at the same time, you have to have your boundaries. And animals teach us that you have to be able to practice tough love. I know you have a cat that likes toilet paper,
Yeah.
and I've seen
I
some
told
tough love.
her,
I love cats, but the story of why I went with the wolf hybrid was about 13, 14 years ago. I told one of my sons I was going to get a German Shepherd. I've always loved Huskies, Malamutes, and German Shepherds because they reminded me of wolves when I was a kid. And I loved the Jungle Book. There was just something when I was a child that I don't know. There's this precog premonition futuristic thing. All these years later, I have these wolf hybrids in my life, which feels natural to me from what I wanted when I was a kid. But anyway, I told my son about 14 years ago, I wanted to get a German Shepherd just for security for our house. We had musical equipment, lots of musical equipment in my home, and I wanted it to not be stolen or anything. And a dog is, pretty good letting an intruder know and the owner of the house simultaneously know that something's going on. And of course, in my son's fun sarcasm, he says, "Hey, it's too bad we can't have a wolf." And I was like, "Hmm." And I went on to Google and I found a breeder of wolf hybrids. I called her up, and within 10 minutes, my debit card was out and I had money put down on a female 5-week-old little wolf hybrid. and I got her in December of 2011, I believe. And she was the most amazing animal I ever had. She forced me to go into nature. So right there, what the breeder told me was animals are not as smart as humans in the sense that they don't have the same type of intellect that we have. But see, as much as that's a blessing for us, our intellect is also kind of a curse because it gets in our way egotistically as well. So an animal wants to feel love and it wants to feel safety, but it's also working on a very base instinctual level. So I took that and said, okay, my wolf dog is going to teach me how to get back in tune with my instincts. So when we went out in nature and things like that, I would observe how she would sniff, how she would look up at the crows, how she would just check around her surroundings. And these kind of things really helped ground me as a human being. And I didn't have that enrichment all my life until I actually had this animal. So my life was enriched and I was responsible for it. And to me, that is a spiritual connection because I learned something psychologically about myself from that connection. So, I mean, I know there's millions of people out there who agree with that.
Yeah, agreed. And some people who don't actually realize it. I mean, there's a lot of animal abusers out there and things of that nature that really make an animal. My daughter had a pit bull that she was trying to rescue, and this thing would not let anybody. He was so protective of his
Mm.
space that he could physically destroy a kennel
Wow.
to try to get out and intertwine with people, and she was trying to get him uh, to be able to entertain other people coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Really had a hard time with it. It was a very
Yeah.
difficult thing, and it wasn't a
Well,
wild dog.
you mentioned a few minutes ago about Caesar Milan, the dog whisperer, right? Because you said that you're like a dog whisperer. Anyone who knows how to train a dog really knows what's truly going on, which is your commands and your reflection to that animal is everything right now to that animal. So in every single episode of those shows on TV, he comes into the family and he says, I don't fix dogs. I rehabilitate the human behavior so the dog can respond properly again. And over again, he makes the same comment. Oh, this dog is unruly because you guys are yelling your discipline on an emotional level at the dog, but you're not being a true leader or an alpha to this dog. So the dog has to become the alpha. That by nature, they fill the void.
Hmm.
Why they take advantage. That's really what an animal does. So the need of the discipline is what makes in my sense in my from my experience the love more enriching because it really is difficult sometimes not to be emotionally tried by an animal when it's like biting everything. Like the last month I've had my puppy, she's destroyed several socks, like I said, and all like that. So I've been dealing with that. But I also know that in the next couple years, I'm going to have a very well loved, loving animal. And I'm going to be, fishing, going to the river with her, enjoying nature, and seeing a lot of people smile. I want to introduce her again because she's laying down right now, and I want to
Bear
pick
with
her up.
you. We'll wait till she.
Wakes up. There
Uh,
was one thing that I wanted to make mention about this discipline that Caesar Milan talks about, which is it's important to understand that we shouldn't buy animals because they're cute and furry and look like little life teddy bears. Because
right.
kittens and puppies, there's a lot of sales at the end of the year for the holidays, and so sales spike up at the end of the year, which is great if the parents or the people who are purchasing these animals as gifts consider that when the romance and the cuteness is over, the love and the discipline have to take over, and children can be taught valuable life skills if they're given an animal. And then really what the gift is the skill that comes with the maintenance and the love and the discipline of that animal. So many times families will just not care and they will give these animals to shelters. So come late, early spring, now sales aren't up anymore, but the amount of animals that are going to shelters, that statistic comes up because there's a large amount of families who just give up on the discipline part because the furry cuteness is gone. And that's the same in relationships between people. I've read too. There's a lot of connections in relationships. It doesn't matter if you're relating with a human or an animal of some sort, there is an interaction there. And people will have an initial attraction, like, oh my God, that was the puppy I wanted. Oh, that's the woman I was attracted to. It's not too different. There's an attraction, right? We all have things that we like, right? In the beginning of a relationship, there's the romance phase when everything is fresh and new. And then when you get to know each other and the real work begins, that's when the real work begins. And that's where you find out if people really love each other and they're going to stick on that path. And you can tell the way people stick with things, what level of self-growth they're really on. If you go from thing to thing in life and have this like hyper fixation of where you get excited because you have this new hobby and it excites you for a few weeks, and then you get used to it and your brain doesn't create as much dopamine excitement anymore, so it doesn't seem exciting. Then you go to the next thing and the next thing. That's great if you want to do that with hobbies. This is not great to do with animals. They are part of this existence. They deserve something better than just being treated like cute things and then being taken to a shelter or something like that.
Right.
So I implore people, think ahead before you get an animal. What's it going to be like when it's not a cute furry teddy bear anymore, and it has needs? Are you going to run that path with that animal, or are you going to give it away? It's so important to know these things.
Went on so many talking points. I wanted to point out a pit bull boxer mix that I had when you're talking about training. So this pit bull boxer loved to pull. He's strong. He wants to be the alpha in the situation. He wants to just go, 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 go. Well, we're trying to train that out of him, and this was about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And he would, like, if you'd open the front door, he would bolt out and he would run, 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 and put himself in a lot of precarious situations. And what I found in learning the animal himself was there were two things that motivated him more than running.
Mm.
One was dog bones and treats and car rides.
Yep, there you go.
All I would have to do is if he ran off, I would get in my car and act like I'm going to leave, and I'd leave
Open up the door.
I'd leave my hatchback open, and he'd jump in the car.
That's great. Yeah.
Or I'd say, as soon as he started driving down the driveway or running down the driveway, I'd say, "Hey, you want a treat?" And he'd freaking stop in his tracks, and he'd turn around and he'd come right back for a treat.
Yeah.
As long as I had the treat.
Yeah, you gotta know how to turn them around. I had that experience once with my first wolf dog. My son was 13 at the time. She got out and we were chasing her down the street. There were buses, 2-lane highway. It was so scary. We were chasing her, but I think she didn't realize that. I think she thought she was in charge. Right. So what he did was, and this was like a miracle, just like a total turnaround. He went, "Okay, bye." And we turned and we started running the other way. And she literally like skid and looked back and then started chasing us.
Yeah.
And I told my son, I was like, damn, that was like the most amazing psychological role reversal thing that he could possibly have thought in that moment. Because had she run in front of a bus, it would have been over. I mean, the traffic was so terrible that day. So yeah, animals, they're an amazing, it doesn't have to be a dog or a cat, kids can have guinea pigs and all. But I think the intimacy of something like a dog it's at a very, very deep level. I mean, I lost Alchemy. She died in my arms. I had a car accident. I've talked about this on previous podcasts, and I won't go into all that. But I mean, I got to be there for her at the end, and it was difficult, but it was beautiful simultaneously. I've mourned that moment, but also appreciate what that animal was for me. And, now that 2 years later, I have another wolf hybrid, I picked up where I left off, and I feel happy about it because there's this connection between us that is mirroring my behavior. Like if I start getting like any, if I start like using emotional type of training on this animal, it's going to become unruly and it's not going to work out. So I'm really coming into this one with love and the expectation that this exercise in learning that is happening for me is going to wind up being a very wonderful relationship between the two of us. So, and when you come back to Washington, you're going to meet her and we're going to go fishing. I
Okay.
don't know if I'm going to be able to take the cat on that one,
Well,
but
I'm a kind heart, and for some reason, the good Lord does not allow me to catch fish. So
oh,
I can literally sit on a dock with two people and have the same bait, and they're bringing in 10, 15 fish, and I'm just sitting there going, do, 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 do.
wow.
Unless you got a trick, uh, fishing, fish don't like me.
Uh, I have I have not gone fishing in quite some time. The way that I learned about Carnation, Washington, and Tolt River was a friend of mine lives out there, and he started having his birthday parties on his property up there, and he's got several acres, and that turned into a mini concert every September. And one day I just saw the bridge and I pulled off, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is beautiful!" And it can be anywhere in the world, beauty, you know. And there's just some spots that we all pick that mean something.
Yeah,
Alchemy, before she passed away.
Minnesota Canal up there in Washington.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I took Alchemy to Tolt River a few times. It was like one of her last places before she passed away that my family got to play with her in the river, and we knew that she was getting sick, so we made sure that we had fun and we created lots of memories and all. She was a very loved animal, and what was amazing about that, because in the early part I mentioned how I've the experience of watching a lot of people's faces go from frown to just total love just looking at my puppy. Um, over the years, there's been family members who wouldn't talk for 6 months, or brothers and sisters that wouldn't talk, or people would be upset with each other. But that wolf dog, she brought everybody together in love. There was no hatred. There was no, none of that. Because these are very smart animals. I mean, you can teach parrots how to speak. Wolves can know multiple commands. They can learn different syllables. It takes them a bit. And she's also husky, so as far as talking, that's all I got. She knows how to say "I love you," but still doesn't know how to do all her business outside yet. It's funny how they can learn something that quick for a treat, but But anyway, you've mentioned a little bit about your cat. What's your cat's name?
It came to me as Milo.
Okay.
At this point, I'm just calling him a turd.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's fitting for his name. But I mean, the amount of toilet paper that this cat has gone through is just mind blowing. We're
Mm.
talking 12, 15 rolls of toilet paper and I've only been here a month and a half. So 12 toilet paper rolls. And if I turn my eye for a second, that cat is eating toilet paper. I just don't get it. It just blows my mind. But otherwise than that, it's like you were talking about nighttime. I'm kenneling the cat at night because
Okay.
there is no way I can let that cat out at night.
Yeah.
It's chasing ghosts. It freaking
Mhm.
knocks things down, and so I'm kenneling it at night so that it's going to get on a sleep schedule here in the next couple weeks, to where
Mhm.
it will cuddle up and actually go to sleep,
Right.
waking up at night, and that's when they're like, ah.
Well, yeah, I've been getting woken up about 5 o'clock in the morning with a tongue in my mouth a few times,
Oh,
and I'm
nice.
like, oh, this. But she's still got the puppy breath at the moment. It's okay, but the vet said she's going to be about a 70-pound dog, 70 to 85 pounds. So that's fairly large. I did want to add one thing. I know we have a few more minutes. I didn't get a chance to remember this until just now. Uh, in previous podcasts, I've mentioned I've studied psychology. I have a best friend who's got a master's degree in psychology from the University of Washington. And we used to have this daily thing called the coffee talks, where he would tell me what was going on in class that day. So, by proxy, in a sense, I felt like I earned part of his degree because I was his friend who reflected off of, he would like do, talks on me or papers on me and keep me anonymous and things like that. Um, basically, why am I bringing this guy up? Oh, yeah, because he wants to do a talk with you.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so basically, he wants to do a talk because I was telling him this whole thing about animals and plants and just everything in life in general reflecting to us. And that is one of the things he learned when he was getting his degree, was that there's basically, remember what Einstein said, you can either live like everything is a miracle or you can live like nothing is a miracle. And any good saying is really, it's the implication of what it means, not with the words it's using. What I take out of that is, if you believe something, you need to believe it wholeheartedly. You can't bend your belief system based on the current circumstances that work for you. Like,
Correct.
oh, it's a God because I got this blessing. Oh, there's no God because I got into a car accident and my blessing was taken away. That's, you can't look at things like that, you know? So when I was young, I had to witness in my childhood some animals that weren't really taken care of by my parents very well. And that impacted me. I saw that experience. I remember my mom when I was before I was a teenager having this beautiful shepherd sheepdog, and she named him Dylan, but there was just no training. He was insane. I mean, he would jump up on the table at dinner and steal a whole stick of butter and then be like, "Oh, Dylan," it's like he would get, that's what he got, that's how he got treated. And so that's, he unfortunately got hit by a car. I found out after I moved in with my dad. Months later, I found out from my brother that this dog died in a car hitting it because it got out. And my mom felt devastated and admitted that she really didn't do a great job training it. But you can't just make a decision like, I'm going to parent, I'm going to train a dog. You should study a little bit.
Right.
Just don't wing it, because how do you know you're not doing what you're doing based on what you were trained or what you went through or traumas from a childhood? So
But
to me, it was kind of traumatic to see animals in our family that weren't trained or taken very good care of. It bothered me.
people don't get trained on how to raise children.
Yeah.
I mean, it's terrible. I remember a little bit of a story when I was a kid. I had a husky Malamute. I was young, probably 9, 10 years old, and my dad was starting to train this dog. Well, this dog ran out of the house as a puppy and ran down the street, and this Asian couple had their dining room table, which was at ground level, mind you, and they were sitting down to have their meal, and their table was full, and the dog ran into their house and jumped on their table and started eating their food.
It sounds like something a husky would do.
And my dad had to actually go in their house. You can imagine them standing up, oh,
Mm-hmm.
dog, and yeah, just you gotta have a good story like that every once in a while to
Oh, absolutely. I can just imagine that as a cartoon.
right.
I got myself this really nice takeout of yakisoba chicken a few nights ago, and Tala was in the car with me when I ordered it. It was a takeout, and she could smell it. She knew it, and I told her when we got home I'd give her a couple pieces of chicken, because she was behaving. Well, I ate half of it, and I put the styrofoam together and I put it up on my table and went downstairs to use the restroom. And while I was washing my hands, I realized what I had done.
Yeah.
I just had a shepherd, husky, Malamute wolf, all the best noses in the world in the dog kingdom. I ran up the steps as the yakisoba noodles were coming down onto the floor, and she was trying to get the chicken. I learned my lesson. I won't ever do that again. I've had to baby proof my room over and over again. I mean, it's just empty. All of my music equipment is out of my space right now because I don't want her to chew on any wires or anything
Right,
like that.
right.
So,
Yeah, I have
but
that problem with that too. So
I really appreciate the fact that we could have this talk, because mainly I feel like what I wanted to get out of this was the impact that animals have on our lives can be astonishing if we allow ourselves to open up to the reality that genetically we're related to them anyway, so we're really relating to an ancient aspect of ourself. And I think that's what we've lost in our modern society. Get off the cell phones, everybody. Please stop talking to 10 or 15 people a day, and get back to basics. And no wonder people have so much depression and anxiety, and they're filled with things these days, because the modern amenities are great to have, but we should not just be depending on them. We need to get out. We need to be reconnected with what we are. Air fills our lungs, water fills our bodies, the earth is in us as far as minerals, etc. Right? We are a part of this environment, you know, and based on the environment we allow ourselves to be in is based on the mental and emotional health that we can have. I just, after my car accident, I came to realize I want to enhance the rest of the experience that I have in this life. I don't want to regret the mistakes I made. I don't need them shoved in my face by anybody. All I need to do is live my life, enjoy my life, and bring back all the skills over the years that I've gained through drumming and teaching and performing, raising my animals, just loving plants, having friends like you where we can talk like this and try to inspire other people to, you know, do their thing in life.
All
It's
right,
all you can do.
we're out of time. We're down to less than a minute. I would invite everybody to go to the Go to Charles podcast. Will and I will keep this dialogue up. Please like, subscribe, and comment below. We'd love to hear your opinions and your stories. Appreciate it. Peace out.